Everyone. My name is Laureline Hoyt. I'm the Executive Director of the Tawar Network of Engaged Universities, a global coalition of universities dedicated to strengthening the civic responsibilities of universities. I'll serve as our moderator for today, and welcome to the 8th episode in this series, Adapting to the New Reality, Civic Engagement and Social Entrepreneurship. Today, we're going to examine the role of the university during the pandemic with an emphasis on the intersection between civic engagement and social responsibility. And this webinar is part of an educational partnership between the Tawar Network and the Open Society University Network. And we're delighted to be working together because we share a global vision of uniting universities around the world in collaborative research, collaborative learning projects, and importantly, preparing students to become engaged citizens. The goals of this effort are to collect stories and share stories of individuals and institutions who are taking action to mitigate the crisis. We're working to document practical steps and strategies that may be useful to others around the world. And we're also aiming to strengthen public support for civically engaged universities. The effort really has two different parts. There's the webinar series, but there's also grant and award opportunities for students. And currently we're accepting applications from graduate students who are focused on working with communities during the pandemic and who are trying to adapt their projects. We're offering them mini grants to support that work. And the deadline is November 30th, so please help us get the word out about that. Delighted to be here, and without further ado, I'd like to get us started. Each of our panelists will present their work for about 7 minutes. They'll describe where they're working from and how their work has shifted because of the pandemic, and they'll share some practical lessons with all of us. They represent institutions in Zimbabwe, Uganda, England, Palestine, and the United States. So without any more waiting, Tanya, would you please get us started?
Right. Hello, everyone. Makadi Zhenyu, Salimonani. I hope you managed to catch these words because you'll be needing them when you come to Zimbabwe, our very beautiful country, which is known as the House of Stones, which is the second best thing to the pyramids. My name is Tanya Razwarukwa. You can call me Tanya. I'm the alumni and the former campus coordinator for the Panari program at the Catholic University of Zimbabwe. So professionally, I'm a digital strategist, copywriter, and marketer, but I'm currently the digital platforms manager for Panari and the copywriter for the top digital agency in Zimbabwe, which is Biggest House, as you can see. As you know, Zimbabwe is a third world country on the path to greatness. We have a lot happening for our country, from its natural resources to the citizens with their great entrepreneurial spirit. However, we have faced so many challenges over the years actually, due to unstable economy that has limited the little man to become a recognized business owner. This has pushed the upcoming entrepreneurs and socialpreneurs to think a lot about their strategies and their business approach. So being a student in Zimbabwe, a university student, whether you're in Zimbabwe or the global platform, I actually taught general theories rather than real world problems, and having to come up with real world solutions, you don't get that chance. So this has caused many students to black out and black out when they leave school, and they don't know how to become self-reliant, work in organizations productively, or even start their business based on their passions. That's where Panari comes into play and has changed the dynamics and also equip students with the skills for the real world and broaden the mentality of the students to go for what they want and what they are passionate about. So for those who don't know what Panari is, Panari is the brainchild from the former students of the University of Zimbabwe. It was started to economically empower students to become civically engaged and responsible business leaders who thrive to make positive social economic impact on their communities. The students are taught to apply business concepts to develop entrepreneurial projects that improve the quality of life and standard of living for people in need. So this program actually strengthens the capacity of the youth to participate in the mainstream economy, because we believe the youth are provided with quality entrepreneurship education and the chance to earn a livelihood and contribute to their communities where we actually believe that there are no limits to what students can accomplish. So as I said, with Panari helps students to discover their leadership potential and to develop futures for their communities by adopting possibility-oriented approach to life despite the political and economic insecurity in the country, which actually makes it difficult for young people to participate in civic projects. So the University of Zimbabwe maintains a strong community focus and commitment to student experimental learning with opportunities in social entrepreneurship and community engagement. So that's just a brief background of Panari. So after experiencing economic and social turmoil due to COVID-19, Panari came through and helped alleviate the problem. The Panari team engaged a project manager that helped identify a group of students, Panari students from the University of Zimbabwe, who would help to in the Mavuku Tafara initiative project. So Mavuku Tafara is a high density area which is in Zimbabwe. The team engaged entrepreneurs who had very different ventures, intending to educate them on business management skills and financial literacy during the pandemic. So basically the participants were from the energy sector, the food sector, the organic and beauty product sector, the tourism sector, event management, and agriculture. So these are very different platforms that we managed to target during this pandemic. Though this was a crash course that we did for 5 days, we had very active participants who went through an intense training program that would help them on how to manage their business and their clients or customers better. So we had a business accelerator called Enoch Mumba, who did a huge number on the students. He gave them a huge jumpstart to business management, marketing, record keeping, costing, and so forth. Enoch, who was better known as Coach Enoch, gave the participants manuals on start your business that would guide them in operating their business better and create structured business plans. So what I love most about this project was that Coach Enoch actually took a personal interest in the individuals. So he understood their mistakes, correcting them the best way that they can. You know how it is to teach adults. It's not as easy, but he did a fantastic job, a phenomenal job. The best advice he gave the students was to practice and formulate a business model that better suits each individual's business. The initiative not only helped them with their businesses, but it also transformed them for the better. After interacting with the participants, we actually did a video. It will be I think it will be coming up soon. You could tell that everything had changed for them. The haze, there was a haze in their eyes. It had lifted, and they're willing to do right by their businesses. So the students that took part in this initiative project worked on the digital end of things and also the physical aspect as well. They captured data and posted on our social media platforms. They also took part in the classes, learning the best they could from both the coach, because you can not only learn from the coach, they also learned a lot from the participants who were taking part in this initiative. After the workshop ended, the students were asked to write down their experiences as in the form of blog articles for the program, and they had such amazing feedback, and it was great that we touched both the students' lives and the participants, the young socialpreneurs that we're trying to change for the better. So if you would like to see more about these participants and students, what they were up to during this time, you can go to our social media platforms and take a look-see. So it's at Panari. So thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to present to you our civic engagement during the pandemic. Have a lovely day. Muenezwa kanaka libe lokusupelisi.
Thank you so much, Tanya.
Thank you.
I'm wanting to come to Zimbabwe now.
Yeah, you can come over.
So now we'll travel along the continent to Uganda. Philium, would you please speak next?
Hi, everybody. My name is Philium Efiti. I'm the Dean of School of Media Technology in Livingstone International University in Eastern Uganda. And by profession, I'm a journalist. I highly appreciate the opportunity given to me to share about our university, the Livingstone International University. And it's really an encouragement to us from Uganda to be part of this program. I just want to slightly somehow give you an overview of Uganda. Uganda is basically an agricultural country, and the majority of the population depend on farming, particularly subsistence farming. And we only have very few cash crops, coffee and cotton, which have as major parts of export. I would like to waste my time about Uganda, but I want to picture out our situation during this COVID-19 pandemic. When COVID-19 pandemic emerged in Uganda in March this year, it appeared as a joke. Everybody took it just like a joke. But within no time, it turned to be a serious matter. And as a result, it affected the country. And the government of Uganda immediately took strict measures, absolutely strict measures, and all public gatherings were closed down, the institutions were closed down, the markets were closed down, majority of the industry were closed down. So people had to move to their homes and they were locked down. And it affected the whole country socially and economically very, very much. Although the measures helped so much to lower the COVID-19 cases, its impact left a severe socioeconomic situation on our country. The economic activities slowed down, and both for the private companies and the government, and the domestic tax collection also slowed down. So this means that the government could not really get much money to run its activities. And worse still, the closure led to strict restrictions on agricultural products, transport restrictions, ban on weekly markets, As a result, people had to switch from feeding on fresh food to dry ration. And also health was affected. It was a big challenge in our country during that short period when there was absolute lockdown by the government. This also affected the entire community. Poverty emerged among the people, health services were poor. For the poor people especially, it was difficult to access health facilities where a lot of money was needed. And the closure of schools also affected particularly girl children. And many girls got pregnant when they were locked down in their villages. So it became quite challenging. However, with the recent opening of some areas, a number of things have now taken place according to the release that we now have in the country. But I want us to have a second point. I want us to have a look at the position of Livingstone International University during this COVID period. COVID is real, obvious, and this forced the university to close down, and the staff were sent on unpaid leave. All staff went home, with the exception of some few who were retained in order to do some isolated work in the university. And these works were linked essentially to the COVID-19 pandemic, and they fell under academics, community engagement, and research. Likely enough, I was one of those retained to handle COVID task force, which we formed, and we then came up with the strategies to identify how we can implement invite activities during this lockdown. And we looked at some three major areas as an university. One, how can we support students who are locked down in their homes and to keep academic running? This was a big challenging situation. Two, how can we support the communities to manage COVID-19 pandemic and strive to also earn a living? And number three, we also looked at support of research projects, especially in the manufacturing sector. Why do we pick on manufacturing sector? Because in the manufacturing center, we have a larger population, workers who were locked down. And secondly, this manufacturing sector normally has, basically has agricultural products. So it concerned us. And we thought that there was need to carry research. The idea for the university was to lead the process of turning research output into products and services to help the community and to help the marketplace. So we went ahead with these areas of concern, and we started working on them one by one. As staff of the Livingstone, we began by coming up with open distance and e-learning application. And we trained some staff online, and then we also reached out to students, and we provided students bundles in order to access internet. Because in Uganda, the internet is limited. It's only in institutions, in schools, in villages, we don't have internet. And secondly, electricity is a problem. So somebody in the village has to go to a trading center in order to charge his phone, his iPad, his computer. So the university decided to facilitate students by providing some bundles. However, the result wasn't really promising. It wasn't really promising. I wouldn't say it was 2 months we tried it. It wasn't promising, but somehow it was encouraging. Why was it so? Reason number one was it's new, a new way of studying, which has not been in Uganda before. So it became a bit difficult for people to study online. They began to battle it over. Two, there is a mindset among many of us in my country that online studies is of low standard. They prefer seeing a professor face to face. So it was a big challenge to convince people. Then, of course, I talked about already limited electronic gadgets and power supply. Limited power supply, I mean electricity. You cannot get it all over the country. Basically, you get them in the trading centers and the towns and cities. Then, point number two we did was we decided to engage the community in partnership. We did this in order to draw people closer. We created awareness fora where we used masks to reach out people. Everybody puts on mask, and we also gave out masks to the community. Then we hold meetings, and then we encourage them how to guard against COVID. We use the soaps, standard COVID setup, which what we have to do. We use those standard IEC materials, and we managed to hold with them a number of meetings, and there are a lot of changes now among the community. Then another area we looked into is we engage the staff, the community, and the students in farming. The university has quite a chunk of land, about 53 acres. We thought it would be better if some of them come and do agricultural farming in order to earn money, in order to get food and earn money. And secondly, it helped to create social distancing. Instead of gathering idle in villages, we bring them the whole day, we dig together with them, and there's been a good yield of rice, good yield of greens, of various types, and I see people are happy. And within that period, we train them how to guard against COVID by washing hands, by using masks and social distancing, and so on and so on. I believe it has a very strong impact. Then another area we also looked into is how can we work together? How can the university work together with the community to address the pandemic? How can that be done? We identified particularly the manufacturing sector of coffee, Elgon coffee, because it covers the whole of Eastern Uganda, and so many people in Eastern Uganda grow coffee. So we engaged these people. We did a research, which research we are about to complete, we have not completed. And out of the research, we hope to turn the output as a material for us to see how we can make changes in fighting the COVID among the people, and at the same time to enable them to grow better coffee in order to earn more money to sustain themselves. So generally, these are the areas that we have come up with. And right now, we have already opened our school for the finalists. They're with us, and of course, we have locked them in. We don't allow them to go out for fear that we can easily they can easily contract the COVID-19. And I believe we are progressing quite well. And finally, I want to say that we have learned, I particularly have learned a lot about the pandemic. What have I learned? To me, I think all people are the same. I don't see any difference. All people are the same. All people are equal. That's why COVID-19 never chose particular people in the whole world. It affected everybody. So what do we call for? We not call for unity among us. We call for working together as a team to be able to overcome the epidemic, to be able to develop ourselves in a group, as a team. And two, I learned that isolation during COVID is a personal responsibility. If you don't take a step to isolate yourself, definitely you get infected. And then you give it to another person. And here we see that. So it's a personal responsibility, and you need to take care of that. Lastly, you stay close while in social distance. That's what I learned. You stay close to people, but in social distance. It's very, very important. Even if I'm far from you, but I should be able to communicate with you through the internet, through phone, and we share common things together. Basically, that's what I have for us briefly. Otherwise, there's a lot. With us, there's a lot because we're on the ground, we do things practically, and there's a lot. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you so much, Philium. It's a lot for us to think about, and we will take some questions after some of the other panelists present. Gideon, now we're moving to another continent. You're in England. Would you please share with us?
Hi. So the first question normally is, can you hear me? So you can hear me. I'm Professor Gideon Maas. I'm the Executive Director of the International Center for Transformational Entrepreneurship at Coventry University in England. If you want to know where we are, you take the train for 50 minutes north of London, and then you will find Coventry. So right in the middle of England. We are a well-known entrepreneurial university in terms of the innovation that we're doing, not just in terms of new products and services, but the way Coventry University is organized as well. Just one fact of Coventry University is that its employability rate of its students being 97%, which is quite good. So what we do is trying to get students to be entrepreneurial and innovative in whatever they're doing. And I will tell you a bit more of how we organize everything, especially in terms of entrepreneurship and more specifically in terms of social entrepreneurship. But just coming back to the issue of COVID, the 19 coronavirus, well, everybody is talking about that correctly. And everybody is accepting that it is a problem, or like some people are saying, it's an impossible problem. Because you're in between solutions. The problem that we've got with COVID is that people are talking about that as if it's going to be the only one. We need to solve the COVID issue, and then we've got everything sorted. But we forget about how many trends there are in the world impacting on us, global warming, and a load of these kind of trends that might have an impact. Earthquakes, floodings, and everything that is associated with that. And that is causing us to think a bit differently. I'm always saying that we were probably caught out by the future. In other words, we were so used to just going according to traditional ways that we forgot about trends that's lurking on the horizon, and that is going to influence us. So what we've seen in the COVID environment, and England is in the second lockdown, so it is influencing all countries, is that there's a definite change in behavior. There's a problem of collective stress levels as well. People are afraid of doing certain things. I always saying in the beginning, we couldn't get people in their homes. Now we can't get people out of their homes because of collective stress levels and the denial issues as well, going hand in hand with that. There are so many people that really need a bit more support as well, because they want to talk to people as well. The introverts staying nicely at home, the extroverts saying, well, I can't stay another day at home. And even if the introverts are starting to say that, I'm so looking forward dealing with humans again, then you know it is getting too much for certain people. So the solutions are quite unclear in this environment. Governments like our own said, stay at home. Yes, if we go worldwide, there are 100 million people that is homeless. So which home is now staying at home? or we say, well, we need to be better connected, but half of the world is not connected. And in terms of internet, at Coventry University, it was easy for us to move over to being online because the level of connectivity is there. But not all our students are from areas where they're well connected. So these kind of solutions are providing problems that people want to transplant solutions from one area to another area and just generalize. We all need to stay at home. Yeah, we can't. We all need to work online. No, we cannot do that. So how do social enterprises change? And I'm just going to use one example, is of Approved Bakery here in Coventry. And they focus on training and employing of refugees. And just doing that in an environment where there are no challenges, that's good, because you can train and you will get enough money for that. But soon they realized, no, there's a problem, because at the end of the day, I still need to pay my salaries. I still need to pay my overheads, my rent, and everything else associated with that. And what they've done was to change their business model. And we see a lot of changes in the markets as well. But in this case, what they've done was to sell what they call subscriptions and diversifying their products. So it's not just bread. And they're starting to deliver that as well in an environment where everybody is locked down. So you can't go to a shop. So the shop is going to the people. And we've seen this type of environment in so many cases where, yeah, the restaurants are now selling or takeaways, etc. How fast the business model had to change. So this type of environment, I think it is a bit early to say we will be doing everything online. We've even seen that in students. We assumed young people will always be online. They're fine with that till the moment you ask them, they say, no, we actually want face-to-face interaction at the end of the day. I think people are talking about the new norm in this COVID environment, and it is not that easy to know what this new norm is, because we're in a crisis at this stage. And I think we need some normality to get to a new norm. And how do we react to that? If I can just quickly summarize that as well from our side, Coventry University, is that I'm in charge of two centers, basically the International Center for Transformational Entrepreneurship and the Coventry University Social Enterprise. In my the International Center, we focus on a collective group and not so much just on the individual. Individual is important, but again, my friend from Uganda also got a saying is that it takes a whole village to create one entrepreneur. So we need to look at the whole environment to think, how can we create these entrepreneurs? So it's important to focus on the scalability, the kind of community impact on the one side and the economic impact on the other side. You can't just focus on one. So we create a lot of knowledge specifically on this level of the interface between theory and reality, so that people know how to bend theory to reality. Our whole ecosystem at Coventry University then goes into the ideation phases, and then to the incubation phases, and then helping people to scale up. So that whole ecosystem is existing. And I think that's one of the biggest lessons for me from this type of environment, is that we need that kind of ecosystem. We need a total system to look after people. Because then for me, at the end of the day, we stay true to entrepreneurship, which for me is a human development act. And not in terms of just monetary means. That, in short, what we are doing. Back to you, Laurie.
Thank you so much, Gideon. Let's move right along. Alejandro, would you please go next?
Of course. Thank you, Laureline. I'd love to pick up on 3 points that Gideon in his comments just now made. The first is that we have been caught or caught up by the future in this pandemic. The second is that we dare not generalize the solutions. We can't assume a cookie cutter from New York or London or wherever else in the world is going to work for realities on the ground. And then thirdly, that we need new norms. And I'll begin by saying about those new norms. The people who need to create those norms are young people facing broken and ailing systems in their communities. It's not me. It's not someone who's good at answering an RFP or pitching a Silicon Valley investor with some kind of an impact model. It's young people who need access to those tools around the world. I'm Alejandro Crawford. I'm the global lead for OSIN, the Open Society University Network's social enterprise practicum. And we have piloted in 5 countries this fall, are piloting as we speak, in Dhaka, in Bishkek, in Jerusalem, in the Hudson Valley, and in Mataró. And I'm happy to say that the next speaker is our social enterprise instructor and a great social entrepreneur herself in Jerusalem, the lead there. For young people who see broken and failing systems around them, COVID has both exacerbated the access gaps. It's made many of them more severe and much more severe, and also shined a light on what was already broken. And most importantly, for the young people that we like to refer to as entrepreneurial rebels, just to keep ourselves entertained, it has intensified the awareness that we cannot depend on what was built yesterday. We simply can't. We can't depend on antiquated systems built somewhere in the world. We need ourselves to build what meets our needs today. And at OSIN, we have provided a platform, are providing as we speak all the time, a platform for social entrepreneurs around the world, with new countries to be added in 2021, to identify those broken systems and mount live experiments to replace them. But even more important than students adding an idea and putting it online is the process that we're putting them through at OSIN of conceiving those experiments, testing their hypotheses with their users, with their competitors, in their financial and their impact models, and in the markets that they need to serve. And we're doing this in each of the areas that the students themselves has identified. Just briefly to put on screen, this is a group that's really focused on healthcare, and they have a vision to make healthcare accessible in Bangladesh. This is a vision that is focused on education and women. And then this is a group that I'm putting on screen that's focused on energy and solar. And what I want to emphasize really strongly to you is that as we challenge these groups, not just to articulate their vision and do the research to understand the need they're trying to meet, but to engage in a vibrant global process with their peers and with social enterprise lead instructors around the world, where their peers and their instructors provide sources of data, challenge them with new ideas, point out problems that the social entrepreneur, the entrepreneurial rebel, needs to address, and engage in a vibrant exchange of ideas. And they do this not only about their concept, but about their prototypes and tests as they test their hypotheses, about their target and their market, and about their models as they go through a process to make ideas real, to experience the heart of the social entrepreneur's approach, as I see it, which is not to just have ideas and hope you can convince someone to implement them, but to put them out there and refine them under the pressures of reality. Now, as we provide this global feedback, we then go through a process where our students are building a set of skills for the 21st century. And I can't emphasize this more strongly. I'm going to see if I can switch my screen share for a second, because we're studying right now not only the business skills, how to make a pitch, how to size a market, how to create a theory of change for a social enterprise project, but also we're studying the kinds of soft skills that allow, and Dalia Najar, who is a brilliant social entrepreneur from Jerusalem, in a few minutes is going to show projects that include students working together remotely every week, but in an engaged fashion in international teams. And she's going to highlight projects where you'll see students from Kyrgyzstan, from Bishkek to Jerusalem, working together, both to articulate solutions that make sense for local soil and to compare notes and benefit from what they can offer each other. And as we're doing this, the students themselves, the young entrepreneurial rebels themselves, tell us that they improve their ability to think critically in an engaged fashion, not just a theoretical fashion, to pivot and refine their ideas, to tackle difficult moments, to weigh risks and opportunities, and to improve their ability to innovate and be creative. They are indeed learning the entrepreneur's toolkit, from pitching to business and social impact models. But most importantly, as several of the previous speakers have emphasized, their mindset is changing. The Belgian economist, the late Bernard Lietaer, once said, and I actually learned this quote from A Finer Future, Hunter Levin's latest book. He said, "We have an odd tendency to create a world, forget that we have created it, and then throw up our hands and proclaim our inability to change the system." These young social entrepreneurs are learning that they can lead a social innovation, they can launch one, and they can identify those broken and ailing systems around them. But more importantly, all of us fail the first time we try to do this, and the second, and usually the third, with a few lucky exceptions. We learn by experience, and what we're doing at the Open Society University Network with our global social enterprise work is providing students the practice that they need to change their mindset and build those skills. Thanks very much.
Thank you so much, Alejandro. And I would just encourage the audience, as questions come to mind, they're coming to mind for me, you can go to the bottom of the Zoom screen and begin to enter some questions for our panelists. But before we move on to the questions, we have one more panelist. Dalia, if you would, please.
Hello, everyone. My name is Dalia Najar. I teach social entrepreneurship at Al-Quds Bard College with the OSIN group, and I myself is an entrepreneur as well. I am speaking to you today from Palestine. So for those of you who don't already know, Palestine is a third world country fighting COVID-19 with limited resources. The capacity to contain the spread of COVID-19 in Palestine is very limited by ongoing and pre-existing shortages in healthcare equipment, which includes medications and disposable equipment, and even sanitizers and personal protective equipment. So as mentioned by my colleagues previously, even well-equipped healthcare system countries have found handling this crisis difficult. Then the Palestinian healthcare service, which bears the burden of budget shortages and decades-long fragmentation, is likely to fare much worse. So the insufficient amount of equipment needed to treat COVID-19 here in Palestine, for example, I'm talking about 87 intensive care unit beds with ventilators for nearly 2 million people in Gaza. This is all compounded by poor public health conditions, a water and electricity crisis, rampant poverty, and a high population density. So aside from the health burden or challenges of the crisis, COVID-19 has greatly impacted the economic, the socioeconomic, educational, and political status of the country. So speaking of the socioeconomic status in Palestine in particular, it has hugely declined throughout the crisis. We have unemployment rates of 51% in Gaza Strip, 16% in the West Bank, and we also have 38% of refugees living in Palestine that are unemployed. So poverty rates are very high among Palestinians. We're talking about 53% in Gaza Strip, 14% in the West Bank, and 76% in East Jerusalem. And as we all know, poverty increases one's susceptibility to becoming infected with COVID-19. So being poor means living conditions are unhealthy, overcrowded, access to clean water and good food is non-existent at all. Buying disinfectants, gloves, and masks is unaffordable as well. So now I want to move to the educational part where the webinar actually focuses on. Here comes the challenges of the economic system and infrastructure in the country. From my own class, from my personal experience with my students, a lot of my students do not have full access to the internet. Many of them are not even able to afford owning laptops or any remotely educational equipment. In addition to, of course, the financial burden of the tuitions, where many of the family providers have lost their jobs due to the crisis of COVID-19. So, however, narrowing it down to social entrepreneurship, or as I always like to call it, the light at the end of the tunnel, despite all the challenges and the burden caused by this pandemic, there is still a huge opportunity that has risen in the social entrepreneurship field. Entrepreneurs now, because of COVID-19, so COVID-19 has basically highlighted the broken systems, as Alejandra mentioned, in the region and worldwide as well. Entrepreneurs or future young entrepreneurs are currently battling those obstacles and building bridges to make a significant social change. And this is what we hope for when we call for social entrepreneurship. They are literally turning the crisis into opportunities. From my personal experience in Palestine, many social enterprises had turned COVID-19 crisis into community-level changes and opportunities. Many food-based social enterprises have also come together to join forces in this time of need. They are providing food to the most vulnerable communities, and they have actually developed a pandemic food response focused on providing food relief whilst also ensuring resilience, sustainability, and justice. To give an actual example of the OSIN group and the great work that all OSIN professors and students are doing around the world in 5 different countries who are battling the crisis in 5 different ways. So basically the students of this course were actually able to combine projects and work in international teams to develop different kinds of social enterprises and implement them in marginalized communities in each country of the team members. As we see on the screen here, just to give a quick example, we have students from Palestine and Kyrgyzstan who we see on the screen now working on women empowerment and gender equality project. Those students work remotely and internationally to collaborate, get feedback, test their ideas, gain instructions from international faculty, and build partnership. So as their faculty, what we're trying to do, we're trying our best to empower those students, to provide them with the necessary tools to learn to create a reality worth having in the face of these enormous challenges. We also have international students working on another project called Safely. We'll see it on the screen now. So basically this project is combined of international team members. They are working on a more complicated issue. They are working to provide refugees with transport visa documents in order to preserve their right to travel safely to their new homes. So all this great and complicated work is being done remotely during the pandemic by international students who have actually never met in real life. They all come from different backgrounds, different colors, different religions, and different cultures. But they all have this one thing in common, which is the passion to make the world a better place to live in. And this is what I actually call the light at the end of the tunnel. So on that note, I would like to end by emphasizing on the importance of supporting social entrepreneurship during those hardship times. Social entrepreneurs across the world are now needed more than ever. Through OSIN and our amazing faculty and student cohorts, we are battling at the forefront of this pandemic to serve the most vulnerable populations, using our best resources to confront the problems on the ground. We all believe that business changes will continue to evolve as time goes on, but one thing remains certain is the importance of social entrepreneurs to lean on each other to try their best to maintain a strong social enterprise ecosystem and to actually build a world where life is worth living. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dalia, and thanks to all of the panelists. We have many, many questions here. So I'm going to do my best to combine a couple of questions into one and then ask each of you to respond in the order that you've presented. So one of the questions is framed around imagining the future, which is something that entrepreneurs do. And many of you have been focused on students and the development of students. There's two questions. There's one about the tools, are there specific tools that you can share or discuss that students might use to develop these entrepreneurial skills? And then another question was around, specifically what are the skills that, that you need as an entrepreneur? And I just want to try to thread this together for one moment. Tanya talked about, there's a mentality that changes among students who are becoming entrepreneurs and that something changes in their eyes. Philium talked about the mindset and how that is, that sounds a little bit like this mentality piece that Tanya was alluding to. Gideon, in my view, referred to this as, a human development project, if you will. This is about individual development and agency. Agency is something that Alejandro, he didn't use that word, but that's how I interpreted it. He was saying that, students see these broken systems, and he also referred to this notion of mindset. And Dalia, you talked about the opportunity and the light at the end of the end of the tunnel. So I think this is a thread among all of you. Were pointing to this, but can you provide a specific example or two of a tool that you use for students to make this transition and to develop in this way? And what, name maybe one or two specific skills that you think an entrepreneur needs to develop. If you would go first, please, Tanya.
Okay, so as Panari, we had two programs that we used to do with students that we actually still conduct with students. There's Passport to Success and Leadership Skills. So in Passport to Success, you get trained on the path that you want to take. So basically, you get to plan out 10 years of your life. So you look at what you want to succeed in 10 years, how you want to succeed them, and how you're going to go about it. And we have different moderators that actually teach the students on how to drive their passport to success, which is the first step in the entrepreneurship journey. The other skill sets, the other tool that we actually give the students is the leadership skills. So this is when the students are actually taken into the field We have a very generous businessman by the name of Mr. Zuze, who used to take our students into the field, showing them how the business world actually is like. So those were the two major skills that we gave the students. And this in turn helps them open their mind on what they can actually do beyond the classroom. Because as I said before, in the classroom, you just learn theories, but when you're out there, you're learning real life problems that need real life solutions, not a theory. So the students would get certification for these two tools that we'll give them, and we'll give them booklets on how to do this. And as you said, the skills you need as an entrepreneur, most people have got the perception that as an entrepreneur you need capital, you need, you need land, you need assets and whatnot. But I've noticed that you could actually start a business without having capital. What you could have is the people who are backing you up. You have the society who will help you push your business, who help you understand how they will actually understand your business and want to see you succeed. So as a person from, from the society, you have to start from home, and the people from home will actually push your business for you. That's what I have seen in Zimbabwe. You need perseverance, you need determination, you need passion, and then the rest will ignite. So once people see that you have this in your cauldron, they will actually want to work with you. They'll see that you have what it takes to push your business as an entrepreneur. I hope that I have responded correctly to your question.
Yes, thank you so much. Philium? Yes.
Yeah. Other than talking about COVID, our team is a body. We work under community engagement program in the university, and we have a structure for community engagement program, which actually is supported by the university. And the tools that we use for developing our students are over 3 areas. We use team building structures to build up our students and develop them to get skills of leadership. In our weekly sittings, we have weekly discussions. And then 2, we have partnership with a major industry and organizations where mostly our students normally participate in their activities on a monthly basis. And then we send out, number 3, we send out students for what we call outreach program to meet the community. And we have leaders allocated to these various areas in order to share and learn from one another. And the overall is under the internship program of the university. And the university normally has some small budget line to carry out our program. That's how basically we operate. And these students, I'm always proud about one of them. Fiona is one of my best students who has been doing a lot of work in the community. After training him, she goes out, reaches to the community, and apply what he has learned from us to the community. And she has built a number of groups within the community who are learning. And these students also go and help village, what they call community primary schools. That's where they normally go, and they teach needy children after being mentored by us, after being built as a team, and after getting leadership skills. And that's how we operate.
Thank
for
you.
listening.
Thank you, Philium. And I know Fiona, she's wonderful.
Thank you.
Gideon, please.
Yes, I think there are a couple of tools, and everybody has got a bucket full of tools to develop entrepreneurship. But just a couple of remarks. The first one is that it's not a boot camp. Entrepreneurship is not a sprint; it's a journey. Because you learn certain things and you adapt, etc. So it's a more marathon than just 100 meters. There are four things for me that is quite important in terms of skills. The first one is the personal side, the vision side. You need to know where you want to go in life as well. A load of entrepreneurs that I've worked with hasn't got that kind of personal vision. They've got a business vision. And you need to know yourself. You really need to know yourself. If you're married, I always say, go and ask your mother-in-law. She will tell who you are. But apart from knowing yourself, you need to know how to recover from injuries. It's like a sports analogy for me in terms of entrepreneurship. Then, of course, you need your creativity and innovation skills and various ways to get that done. You need to have business skills at the end of the day. You need to know how to measure success, in other words, and you need to have some kind of technical skills as well. What is actually clear for me in this type of coronavirus environment is that all these skills need to add up to one thing, and that is to be change fit, because you need to adapt fast. And you can only adapt fast, basically, if there are two things that is really in your arsenal, and that is OPB and OPM, other people's brains and other people's money. In other words, networks. You need networks. You need that kind of collective number of people that can assist you. And the last remark, we're in a complex environment where innovation breeds innovation. And unfortunately, you can't get away from the fact that you need to gain new knowledge on a continuous basis, continuous learning. And what I'm always saying, and I'm a hybrid, in other words, I've been in the world of entrepreneurship in private sector and academia. And one thing that I've learned over time, there's nothing as practical as a sound theory. In other words, you need to know why you're doing stuff.
Thank you, Gideon. Alejandro.
Thanks, Lurleen. Today we have tools where young people all over the world can connect and gain incredible tools for everything but social entrepreneurship. Now, when I say that, what I mean is if a 12-year-old in virtually any of the cities that are on this call wants to make a well-produced video and can gain access to a center with some broadband or a smartphone, she can do that. But what if that young person wants to connect with other people to do what we're talking about, to make the new ways of doing things that meet our needs? That's something that in our work at OSIN, we've actually been using a tool that was developed just among students at programs like the BARD MBA in sustainability. And it powers all these classes around the world with what we call builders. And these builders are interactive learning that are actually co-developed by faculty, some of whom are on this call, where we work with the expert, but not to give some inaccessible expertise, but instead to provide really basic steps in simple fashion that you don't need an MBA to use. We think of this as the roadside toolkit for entrepreneurship. It's always changing, and none of us has all the answers. For example, we're working with L. Randall Strickland right now, who is used to, he's a leader in the ESG. He's on the BARD faculty, BARD MBA faculty. He's a leader in ESG financing. He's used to looking backwards, as he puts it, at what can allow us to say that a company is solving some of the problems. But the challenge that we're currently asking him hard questions about is how to look forwards. And we're just starting that with each of the areas in which we have expertise. But the key here, all of this, the next language is Spanish. We have a social entrepreneur who does most of her work in Francophone Africa, who's asked us to do French next. We have a strong request from Central Asia to do Russian next, because that serves as a lingua franca in practice, she says, for many of the entrepreneurs there. But the key here is that we are empowering young people to solve the problems that create jobs and replace systems for the others around them. This is not only about reaching the subsistence entrepreneur. This is about providing the tools to create scalable solutions and the community that allows those entrepreneurs all over the world to ask themselves questions about their project and get responses from look at this, from Europe, from Asia, from the US, with tough questions and links. And beyond that, it allows us to have experts. These people in blue are alumni who themselves work in major consultancies. And David just quit Tesla to go to another startup. Melissa runs in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, a social enterprise incubator, and so on and so on. These are people who have put their powers to the service of our younger social entrepreneurs so that their experience doesn't go to waste, and it can create the kind of work that, that Dahlia has shown. And the second half, so these are tools that we don't claim to have invented the best things in the world, but we, across our countries, are constantly refining not just the tools, but the way we use them, the methodology we use to get these results. And I'm going to show you just one more thing, which is that as we use these, we have had this chance to study the impact that this has on the young social entrepreneur. And to me, this is the most exciting part. We're doing it at Open Society University Network this fall in collaboration with the BARD IRB. And what we're finding is that students using these tools, they gain these critical confidence in their ability to create solutions. They gain interest in entrepreneurship, which is interesting, right? You could get turned off by the kind of hard feedback these folks are getting. They're shown on screen. In addition to interest, they gain skills like learning the core concepts. And these are students' responses in entrepreneurship or starting a new initiative, learning skills that other learning experiences don't sufficiently develop when we do things in that old way that was spoken about by the previous speakers, and then increase, and this is where I'll end, in the self-confidence. And I don't mean a false confidence. I mean a rigorous, battle-tested confidence required to take on complex social issues and attempt practical solutions. If it's not the young people in our communities, who is it and who will it be?
Thank you, Alejandro. And Dahlia?
Yeah, well, Alejandro said it all. But I will add, like I always honestly tell my students and tell myself how lucky we are to be part of the OSIN group. We have this great platform, the Rebel Base website or platform, that gives the students the power to come up with their ideas, to make their builders, to have international collaboration with international students, to get feedback from international faculty who themselves are entrepreneurs. Like all the faculty, we've been through the process, we failed, we rebuilt ourselves, we learned from our mistakes, and that's how we are trying to empower our students, to give them the tools to shine. So even if they fail, we keep telling them, even if you fail, that's not the end of the world. This is where you start. This is how you become successful. So the OSIN group is giving a platform, is giving a very powerful tool to our students to try things, to get feedback, you know, on an international perspective. They are all working on global issues, you know, international issues that can be implemented in each community in 5 different countries. In terms of skills, one thing I believe communication skills is very important when it comes to entrepreneurship. Even if you have a great idea, if you have a great problem, but if you don't have the way to communicate, or if you don't know how to pitch it, then your idea will be invalid. We're trying to give them the skills to communicate, to network, to reach out to people, to ask questions. If you don't ask, you'll never get the answer. And it doesn't really necessarily to always get the answer, but go do the research, ask questions, ask your friends, your family members, you will find it. Also, it's very important to be creative when it comes to entrepreneurship, to be innovative, to take the risk. One thing I also end my class with, and I will end it here today with my question, I keep reminding my students to fall in love with the people they serve, not the solution itself. I tell them, love the problem, not your solution. And this, if you do so, then you will definitely succeed.
Thank you so much, Dahlia. And I'll say that I'm falling in love with each one of you. I want to thank you all so much for participating in this vital topic. Tanya, William, Gideon, Alejandro, Dahlia, thank you for the work that you're doing. I also just want to mention there's still quite a few people online, even though we've gone a bit over time. We do have mini grants available for graduate students. So the deadline is November 30th. So a few more weeks. Please go to the Tawar Network University website for more information. And I also want to remind people that our next webinar will be held on Monday, December 14th. We'll be looking at long-term university community partnerships and the ways in which they are adapting to the new reality, if you will. Everyone, please stay safe, stay well, and take care. And thank you again for everything.